Good evening everyone and welcome back to Monster Hunter Stories, and this will be the last video in the main part of this series. Now, there is a few things to clear up before we actually get to the first fight that's going to pop up in this video. This last act is really just a series of fights, one right after the other. And you just go through pretty much a linear corridor with very minimal monsters in between the fights. So there's a pretty solid chance that as you go from one fight to the next, you're a little bit underleveled. So unlike normal, where I actually leave some room towards the end and just put the boss timestamps at the bottom, because the very first fight in this is actually the first part of the final boss fight. There's just sort of two other fights in between. I'm going to list the fights that go off and actually go over sort of what my levels were at each fight, so you sort of have a baseline as to where my playthrough put it at. And we'll post them all at once. Now, the very first fight with Anshen, which he pops up right at the beginning of this part of the act, you can basically go straight to it from Arkveld and take out. It's a bit of a gimmick sort of fight where you really only have to achieve one goal, so 58 was good enough. Bound Azure Rathalos, I just killed some stuff on the way to it, and I was able to sort of brute force my way through it, do it a couple times, and win. So level 60, just the amount of XP I picked up getting to it. Lunagaron, I ended up having to go do a little bit of grinding to gain a level or two, and that mellowed it out enough to make it doable with just one or two retries. But the final fight against Aenshin, which is actually split into two parts, I had to do some significant leveling to actually make that fight just a little bit easier. It's not absolutely necessary. If you execute the fight well and you use the right monsties, then you could probably do it significantly lower than that. I'd say around 65, 66. But I got all the way up to 71. Part of that is because that's the point where I actually swapped out two of my monsties. I picked up a Devil Joe and a Stygian Zenogre. And it took a little bit of time to actually grind them up to be on par with the rest of my team so that they were actually usable. And in that time, I gained about 2 extra levels just across the whole team. And as far as level grinding goes, which by the way, I'm sorry my guy's just standing still in the background. Like I said, there's not a whole lot that goes on in this chapter. So I had to insert just some dead footage so that I could actually speak to you at this point. But the easy way to grind in this chapter is just go to Serathis and go to the area right near where you fought Malzeno and Arkveld and fight more Malzenos and Arkvelds. And once you get to where your XP slows down, switch it to nighttime since it ramps up the levels on everything, and grind some more. I also went back, finished out some side quests just for the fun of it to break things up a little bit. Probably not the most time effective way of doing things. I think the Arkveld fights are pretty good in terms of time investment per XP that you gain, but the actual side quests, not a very super time efficient way of doing things. And of course at this point I've got all the camps unlocked and I've done all the invasive species and I've done all the side stories. So side quests and monster grinding is about the only way to really level stuff up. And it takes a minute to catch your other monsties that are lagging behind up because there's not really any significant jumps in terms of XP gains at this point. Now, when the first title update over the summer comes out and it introduces royal monsters, which are like supposed to be around level 80 or 90 or something like that, those won't be a good alternate grind either just because of how high the level is. Like even as high a level as I am, and doing some nighttime stuff, I would go fight a few elder dragons when they would pop up. The only one I come close to beating was Yamasukami. The others, I could do some damage. I'd say if I really buckled down and took a team in dedicated to fighting them, could beat them. And same sort of deal with the actual invasive species. Like you can go to the dens where you get the rare species and actually fight them and fight them to the finish. If you're wondering how to get those invasive materials, that's how you do that. But couldn't really successfully do that myself. So instead I ground myself up to level 71-ish, and I got my Zenogre armor upgraded to rank 2. I upgraded my Malzeno weapons to rank 2, and I actually have an Arc-Veld Greatsword. So all dragon weapons, and that's mainly because almost everything except for Lunagaron is weak to dragon in this particular stretch of the game. And that's the reason why we're using Devil Joe and Stygian Zenogre. You could find something else to squeeze in between them, but the truth is whenever you actually switch to needing them, that's all you really need. You need the Devil Joe for the vast majority of the last 2 fights, and there's one point where you switch to Zenogre until you can do his kinship skill, and then you switch back to Devil Joe and don't ever worry about switching again. So grab them. They'll be super useful for the last fight. If you really want to, you could probably force your way through using Ratha if you want to stick to the story part of it, but you might have to grind up a little bit higher or actually be just a little bit more strategic. Although another thing I'll point out is if you're still not super familiar with how the actual game mechanics work at this point, which you probably are after doing Malzeno and Arc-Veld, because neither of those fights are super forgiving if you're not actually taking advantage of the ability to negate the opponent's attacks, you need to get familiar with that for these fights, because you're not going to beat the game through brute force unless you significantly outlevel these fights. And you can do that, but it's going to take you a while to grind up high enough to really be able to do that. So just my thought, just pick up some basics about it and actively work on doing double skills, doing your counters to the attacks appropriately, and you should be good. Alright, now let's jump up and actually talk about the first fight. Alright, so this fight works just like a lot of the other sort of invasive monsters do, where he has those crystals on his back, and your main goal is really just to break the crystals, so the lower half of the wheel. You can hit his head and break his head, but there's no real point in this part of the fight. The only thing you really have to watch out for is when it's doing this, where the Blightstone has all the little crystals floating around it. It's the same deal as all the other fights where Blightstones are involved. If you hit the Blightstone while the little crystals are floating around, he's going to counterattack. It's going to do a lot of damage. This is probably the easiest fight with Anshen, and all you have to do is make sure that your Monstie is not going to hit the crystal when the crystal's activated. Otherwise, just focus your attacks on the crystal, and you'll eventually break it. This is sort of prepping you for the next time that you'll actually fight him, because you'll need to remember this part of the strategy. This time around, a lot of his attacks can't be countered. Slowly across the 3 different times you fight him, you'll get to where you can actually counter more and more of his attacks. So more or less, you're just slowly making him more and more vulnerable, and it becomes a little bit easier to handle this stuff while at the same time the fight actually gets more intense, like he gets to where he hits harder. This is not a good representation of what the second fight's going to be like. It gets you just some basic preparation, which is pretty cool as far as the way the game design goes, but this one's not that bad. So I'll meet you at Azure Rathalos.
Amazing!
It stopped moving!
Just to reiterate, there really isn't that complex of a route to take in between the different places that you're supposed to go. So you'll have the map pop up, show you go to this place, go to this different icon, see this part of the story, and then that will send you over to the next location and then the next one, and you just go straight lines. Like, there's not a lot of going off to the side. There are no real side quests in this part. So we're just going to cut all the travel in between, because I'll just be honest with you, I can't imagine you getting lost in this section of the game. When it sends you back to Serathis, if you really need to know where to go, What happens is, right out front of the area where you went and fought Arkveld, if you keep going past it, that path actually goes much further now, and you can go into a new map. You can also veer to the left and climb up and get the last camp in that zone at this point as well, by the way. But let's jump ahead to the next boss fight. Alright, so I decided to kind of brute force my way through this, and I just kind of did a couple of attempts in a row. And if I'm being honest, the main reason for that is I did kill a few things on the way to this. I got enough levels that I felt like it was achievable. And he killed me by doing his super attack when he had, like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3% of his health left. And that just kind of made me determine that I wasn't going to go grind for this one. I was just going to straight up try to kill him. So I used Mizitsune to get water attacks in. And other than that, used my dragon weapons because he's a Rathalos, and all Rathalos type creatures are weak to dragon. Same thing with Rathian. It's a weird thing for dragons to literally be weak to dragon, but whatever. There's some interesting logic in terms of weaknesses in this game. One thing to keep in mind, if they're weak to it, if you're wearing their armor, you're weak to it. So even if they use those type of attacks, you got to be careful. By the way, when he's flying, try to break the wings to get him to topple. It's one thing, if you've never noticed in the wheel, it actually tells you what happens when you break that part. Whether it damages the Wyvern Soul gauge or whether it topples them over. Where he's flying, you break his wings, he falls to the ground. And it also prevents him from doing a really big attack. So definitely focus the wings. And be sure you have a decently suited weapon of each category. Like, go in, make sure you actually have your gems equipped at this point in the game. And what you use your gems for is to make sure you're slotting in skills that you might be missing from the weapon that are useful. Like, say, for example, some of the hammers seem to have exclusively multi-target AoE attacks or exclusively single-target attacks. So gemming in the opposite of that can be useful. And with the bow, for example, throwing in something that can actually let you build up charge if for some reason it's missing something that can do that for you, which I don't think any of them are. But just look for the gaps, and that's what you sort of gem in. For Monsty skills, for the most part, you're just trying to get enough bingos to give them the passive stat boosts. But look for skill ups. So anytime you're going through dens, once you have actually gotten the monsters that you're using up to S rank in that habitat, throw in, try to get extras of them sitting around so that occasionally you can stop and look and see at the list of genes and see if you can upgrade from, say, like a medium to a large or a large to an extra large. Anyway, Azure Rathalos. More or less the quick summary of it is he'll start out doing power, then he'll switch to speed, then he'll switch to technical. So speed attacks tend to do pretty well. My Mizitsune actually has a decent variety of attacks, so she can actually counter a couple different things on him. Counter what you can, have something to potentially help with fire, and this is one of those fights where you really sort of want to be using your kinship skills to skip AoE attacks if you know an AoE attack is coming. When he's flying, break his wings to get him back on the ground and sort of reduce the threat that he actually poses. Break as many parts as quickly as you can, just like in other fights, to potentially reduce the damage from doing certain attacks. It's not a terrible fight, especially if you got up to the levels that I recommended, then it'll be okay. If you go beyond those, be even better. One thing I didn't mention about level grinding earlier, there's not really any better spots that are going to open up than what's already available. So you could grind all the way up to the point where you're going to be prepared for Aenshin, and this fight in Lunagaron will be significantly easier for you than what they were for me. But if you didn't do that, you can watch this and see how I managed to weasel my way through it. And otherwise, just take your time and sort of think through. Pay attention to the patterns. Once you see the change in terms of his attacks, if he's not attacking you directly, just pay attention to what he does to whomever you're bringing with you. I like Gaul because for some reason I tend to get really lucky with Gaul in terms of him throwing out vitality essence or healing potions and actually dealing decent damage. But to each their own. Each person's going to have a different companion that they prefer. So tackle this like you do a lot of other stuff. And I'll be back with Lunagaron.
Watch out! Ready? Nice! Good one. Leave it to me! See that? Nice one.
No!
Perfect.
Let's calm down.
Murray! Now! Well done.
You did it!
Perfect.
Watch out!
I won't lose.
Now's your chance!
The pressure's on. Murray! You're open! Well done. Amazing! Now!
Oh no! What?
Ready. I won't lose. Go! I'll give it my all!
Right!
Right. Got one. You too, Captain. Anyway.
Don't even really need to fast forward a whole lot, because realistically, once you've finally managed to put down Azure Rathalos, you just keep walking down the path and Lunagaron is going to be right there. Yet again, these fights may not have believed me yet, but these fights are one right after the other, right after the other. This final act is really meant to be just an intense, let's throw a bunch of bosses at you and see how well you handle yourself type of situation. I didn't think going into this, because of how close this boss fight was to the previous one, that he was going to be all that bad. I was wrong. He is actually harder than Azure Rathalos. And it's just because he's got a lot more speed to his attacks. He seems to take damage a little bit faster, but he dishes damage a little bit faster as well. He goes from speed to power to technical. So first one right off the bat, you need to use technical, then you can switch to speed, and then you can switch to power. So this is a fight that if you've already grabbed a Devil Joe, he'll actually be a pretty decent monster to bring along with you for this fight. Otherwise, just you could probably keep Wrath out and do pretty well. It's not a technically difficult fight, it's just that he actually hits pretty hard. So if you're not putting out the damage, or at least able to soak some of the damage from him, then you're going to find yourself getting just blitzed to death. And yeah, he's not that bad. I did find him worthwhile to actually try using flash bombs on to blind him a little bit and make him miss some of the attacks. But he's got some pretty strong AoE and can actually dish out the damage pretty well. And since he's ice, if you do want to use Rathalos, well, he's going to do damage to Rathalos. It's one of the big problems with actually using Ratha at this. The story heavily encourages it, but he's weak to a lot of the stuff that pops up in this last chapter. So this is where Deviljho sort of shines. Deviljho does dragon attacks, and he's primarily a power attack user. Granted, I loaded mine down with all sorts of attacks, but he's super useful. Stygian Zenogre, if you're wondering why we pick him up, it's because his kinship skill is an AoE dragon attack. And that's useful for one very specific thing that we'll talk about later. But Bound Lunagaron, just take your time, same deal as the previous one. Break parts when they pop up. When they're in their sort of bound state, what you want to be looking for is to actually break the bound parts, like the battle bound particular pieces, and that will break that battle bound state. So do what you can, break every part that you can, and just be patient. If you have trouble with it, don't be ashamed of starting before the battle starts and going out and just grinding a couple more levels. This is an RPG. That's what the leveling system is there for, is the way that you level out the difficulty. Alright, I'll see you at the second fight for Anshen.
Leave it to me! Did it work? Done. They're open!
No!
Don't push yourself.
Watch out!
Murray! Now! You're right. You okay? Don't push yourself. I'll pay you back. Take that! Murray! Now's your chance. Ready. Now! Counting on you. Thanks. You're right. Thank you. Ratha!
Watch out!
Keep it up! Amazing!
They're open!
The pressure's on.
Too slow! Ready!
Keep it up!
All right!
I got it, thanks.
See
This
that?
better work! Are you okay? Take that!
No!
Going all in!
We've got this!
All right!
Right!
Good one.
You too, Captain.
Literally just finish the fight, then keep walking towards the goal, and the next to last fight of the game will start up. And you'll get some really long cinematics. Cinematics are pretty cool at this point. I must say, I've actually really enjoyed the story for this game. Quite a bit more mature than the older ones. And at this point, while I'm traveling, I haven't went and ground things up yet. 63. And just to let you know how that goes, the first time I went into this fight, I got smacked. So, you could probably do it with some careful gameplay. I didn't have a Devil Joe. I didn't have any of the other stuff that you'll actually see me do. So, click over. Oh, yeah, you see it backed up a little bit. He smacked me. I went out, got me a Devil Joe, and got my levels up to about 70 for the monsties, 71 for my character. Alright, so this first fight, you don't really need to bring your Stygian Zen Ogre in. You can just leave Devil Joe out the entire time, because the way he does his attacks, realistically, most of the time, power is going to be just fine. What your goal is, break the Blightstone shell, and that will actually set him up to where you can break some of his cores. And the goal is get the shell broken, get the cores broken, and then there's one big core that you gotta break that will finish this fight. So, what does the strategy really end up looking like for this fight? What you're wanting to do, break the shell, that way those cores get exposed. Destroy the cores, he'll probably go back into a shell again, and then once you break it one more time, he'll be extremely exposed, and you can finish the fight out. Now, what you're going to be doing strategically is, as the fight progresses, once you break the shell, you can actually start countering more attacks. You want to counter as many attacks as you can to avoid taking as much damage as possible. You also want to save your kinship skills for one of two things. If you're certain he has done his big AoE attack, which you'll know which one I'm talking about after you've played through a couple rounds, because I'm assuming it'll take more than one real attempt at this for you to see it all the way through, then you can either ride your Monstie all the way through soaking it, and then just try to heal up the Monstie afterward, or you can try to use your kinship skill to skip it. Personally, I prefer to just soak it and let it knock me off and then just try to heal up the Monstie afterwards, because really what you're going to be using your kinship skills in this for is to clear the petrification status or the Blightstone status. And you'll know you have it if you seem to suddenly stop being able to regain stamina. Because what the special effect that he does to you is he inflicts you with that whole Blightstone growth thing that you see the NPCs having gained, and you no longer gain stamina for doing just general attacks. The way to clear it off is mount your Monstie. Save the mounts for useful points. You can do a decent enough damage just doing your regular attacks and doing other skills to actually get through it. I do believe Gaul actually has some items that he can heal that stuff up with as well himself. And if he does take a heart away from you, that also clears that status effect off. So don't be too worried about dying as long as you have at least a little bit of capability to get some of your vitality back. This fight, for me, was significantly harder than the second fight. Once I was able to finish this one, I kind of feel like the game helps you a little bit with the last fight. And as long as you're executing some of the mechanics and you're not just intentionally being really obtuse in how you approach it, you'll be able to beat the last fight pretty much guaranteed if you can beat this one, unless you just really wildly screw up, or if you're going into it significantly underleveled and you're turning it into a challenge run. Those are the two situations in which I'd see maybe the last encounter actually being a little bit of a challenge. But otherwise, I don't imagine you're going to have a whole lot of trouble with the last fight if you successfully beat this one. The biggest thing is just stay patient and actually try to execute this stuff well. Be sure that you're countering things when you know you can counter it. Like I said, you can pretty much leave Devil Joe out the whole time. And pay attention to which core you're attacking, because switching to the appropriate weapon actually does make a big difference on this fight. Meteor Hammer is what I like to use. Hammer does a significant amount of damage. Breaking the parts really helps take him out quickly, because what happens is he gets the exposed status and he takes significantly more damage from you. So take your time, break everything, and just enjoy. This is one of the cooler fights in the game. It's one of the few ones that actually puts a good challenge up, and he's a good final boss. And if nothing else, it's kind of cool seeing another Elder Dragon actually inspired by, at least to me, somewhat of a blue whale. Anyway, I'll let this play out and I'll meet you at the final boss. And I will say this much too. Even if you have watched these and you're using guides, I highly, highly recommend going into the final boss somewhat blind, because yes, you know what Aenshin looks like. There's some things that happen in that fight that are still pretty cool to see without having them spoiled. Just trust me when I say it's not that different from this, save one mechanic. And I'll go ahead and just give you a hint without spelling it out explicitly. If you can get your kinship gauge built up for Zenogre, then in that fight there will be one mechanical difference, and it'll pop up basically right at the beginning. So start the fight with Zenogre out, and as soon as you can use kinship skill with him, use it. And you should be good to go to switch to Devil Joe and just ride Devil Joe out for the whole rest of the fight. So, I'll see you in the final encounter.
Ready? Let's do this!
Leave it to me! Did it work?
Now's your chance! Now's our chance! We've got...
This is it! Everyone attack!
I got it! The power of friendship! Nice one!
Watch out!
This is mine.
You're right. They're open!
So, last warning before you go into this. This is the final fight. It warns you that this is a point of no return, but I don't know why. It gives you an opportunity to save right afterwards, and that save will load you in just before the final fight. So at this point, you've got everything open. If you want to go do any sort of side quest or anything, you can do it right now. And this is where you're going to come back to grind if you want to go do things like, say, the Elder Dragons. So despite the game's warning, you're at the end, and doing that part doesn't lock you out from anything. It just finishes the game and adds like a little golden crown to your save file to show that you've actually beaten the game. So, without further ado, the final Aenshin fight. Alright, so, like I mentioned towards the end of the last fight, might as well start this one with the Zen Ogre out, because he goes straight into doing a very particular type of attack. And I don't start with Zen Ogre out, by the way, but this is what I would recommend you do. Bring him out from the beginning, and what he's going to do is, here in a minute, he's actually going to do a pretty massive AoE attack. And that massive AoE attack is going to be buffered because he's going to have this Blight Crystal out. Well, see, he's summoning the Blight Crystals now, and then he's going to go do this big ol' AoE. When the Blight Crystals are out, it actually makes this AoE significantly more dangerous. However, Zen Ogre does an AoE dragon skill. So you pull out Zen Ogre, build up his kinship attack, and then for some reason, after I did this, like once I got him up to the point where I had his kinship attack, those Blight Crystals never came out again. I don't know if I got lucky or if it was just a matter of he only summons really one that you need to get rid of, but Zen Ogre's kinship skill just wipes it right off the board. Like, you almost don't even really need to attack it directly. Just get that kinship skill up, and boom, it will take them out fast. And he didn't even really need to do the kinship skill. He just killed it. Devil Joe, I never really needed to switch him out again. For whatever reason, every single time Aenshin would go to attack, he was able to counter it. I really think that this is actually tilted slightly in your favor, especially with the dude that's actually helping you out, where it's sort of the grand reunion thing. And I am cutting most of these little things out, but what happens is every time you break a core, there's going to be a little cinematic and something special happens. I'm not going to spoil what that is. But you go through, you break all 4 cores, and then there will be another set of things exposed that you have to break those as well. Just follow the prompts on screen. Go through, use your power attacks. I never really needed to switch to a different attack type. I just had to switch different weapons. So, use the appropriate weapon for the appropriate part. I used power the whole time through, and this was pretty simple in terms of fights to beat. I don't even really know if it would be that big of a deal if you weren't fully prepped for it. I would imagine there is a certain level that if you're below that point, that this would become a significantly harder fight. But I didn't find it that bad. I think that they mean it to be more cinematic and just more built into, like, build up the excitement that this is the final encounter, rather than actually make it into a fight that you're meant to sort of suffer through. Of course, I think 71-72 is a bit high for this fight, which, by the way, you don't get any experience from the previous Ancient fight, so if it was hard and you wanted to grind up, you're going to need to do it before this one. But good fight, good ending to the game, and I really enjoyed the game. This has been an excellent Monster Hunter Stories. I look forward to the extra content that they release. Now, granted, I have no interest in fighting the royal monsters. That's some cool sort of in-game challenge stuff. There's supposed to be a side story for the little cat dude that I can never remember his name. If they release that, I'll probably do a video on that. That would actually be something that I'd find kind of fun to do. Go through and see exactly what his backstory is, because they don't really dive into it in this. Like, what is his connection to the character from the previous game? Because he looks a lot like him. Is it him? Is he just in a different form and he's forgotten his previous life for some reason? I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure that's what they're planning on revealing, but the first title update is supposed to come out sometime over the summer, so we should get some more content. Now, to forewarn you, they don't do nearly as much with the title updates for Monster Hunter Stories as they do for the mainline Monster Hunter games. But they do them still. You still get a little bit more content dribbled out here and there. But there's much bigger gaps between the Stories games than there is the main series games. So, take your time with it, enjoy it, and wrap up a whole bunch of the extra side stuff when you finish this, because it'll probably be a while before we get another one. Anyway, it's been fun making this series. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I try to answer and help people out as much as I can. I've actually had so many people drop comments across all the different platforms that I put this stuff on about the invasive Khezu. I'm really heavily considering starting up a second file just to get back to it and try to do another kill of it to see about helping people do it again. Anyway, you all have a good night. Thank you for watching the series. And remember, if I can beat it, you absolutely can too.
All right. You okay?
Thanks. Nice.
Don't overdo it.
Thank you.
Aenshin's at its limit.
Go ahead. Now.
I won't give up.
Okay.
That's it.
Keep it up.
Now's a chance.